Empower Youth Week Masterclass. Be inspired, be connected, be transformed.
Hello everyone, I'm Molweni. I am a marketing executive. I've got 18 years of experience and I'm here to talk to you about a topic that is really dear to my heart, and that is women in leadership. Let's go for it. I am Qhawekazi Mdikane. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Momentum Corporate. I have not always been a Chief Marketing Officer for a big organization. I've climbed the corporate ladder for the past 18 years, like I said. That is my experience. And I am really excited, guys, to be here to talk to you about this topic, which is women in leadership. Leadership is such a multi-dimensional and multifaceted topic, and it's got many layers. And for the purpose of today, I'm going to focus on 4 key topics. And you can maybe look at them as, our chapters for today. And the nice thing about them is that they are all interchangeable. You can, or they can be used in any order. So, Chapter 1 is understanding leadership. What does leadership actually mean? And we'll define it. Chapter 2 is finding your leadership identity. At the core of leadership, you need to have your own leadership style and identity. So we'll talk about that. And then Chapter 3 is learning to communicate with intention and the art of negotiating. And lastly, Chapter 4 is building social capital that will carry you through as a leader. Some people refer to this one as social currency, and it's one of my favorite topics, and we'll end off this presentation with that. For me, these 4 key topics have really helped me, I would say, to shape and mold me as a leader in corporate South Africa, especially as a woman. So I hope you guys find them valuable, and let's go through them. So let's unpack the first topic, which is understanding leadership. So, there are many definitions, and I'll say variations of, leadership. But this one from the 2004 Harvard Business Review really resonates with me, and I thought I'd share it with you. They define leadership as the accomplishment of a goal through the direction of human assistance. The accomplishment of a goal through the direction of human assistance. A human and social achievement that stems from the leader's understanding of his or her fellow workers and the relationship of the individual goals to the group's aim. It's a mouthful. I agree, it's a mouthful. But in essence, I think, or in summary, what they are trying to say is that leadership at its core is all about people. It's about humans. It's about humans working together and taking direction to achieve a common goal. But the one key thing that is missing from this definition for me is that it goes back to you as the leader. What is your responsibility, of you as a leader in this situation? And your role is to inspire and motivate those humans or those people or that team that you're working with, and guide them towards your vision. And it needs to be a very clear vision. So at the core of it, leadership is about people, but your role as a leader is to really guide, inspire people to action and motivate people to action. And how do you do that? You start off by having a vision. And as a leader, you need to be able to articulate your vision very clearly to your team and the people and the humans that work within your team. So, what does this all mean? What does leadership really mean? It's important to note that leadership is really not about, I'll say, popularity. It's not about showmanship or power. Like I said, leadership at its core is about people, and leadership requires a leader to really get to know their people. You really need to really know the people and the individuals that work within your team. and really understand their collective goals and as well as their individual goals. So what does it mean? It means that as a leader, you need to actually sit down with your team, with your people, the people that make up your team, and really have conversations with them. Try and understand their dreams, try and understand their aspirations, and really listen to their dreams and their aspirations, because it's about molding them and shaping them and maybe just incorporating their dreams and aspiration towards or as part of your vision. So that's key.
Cut. Before you continue to the next slide, this focus on this one a bit more as your direct audience.
Okay.
Yeah, this one here. But you're doing fantastic.
All right.
Just continue stopping. You're doing lovely. And shooting in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And one key thing to remember, guys, is that you honestly don't wake up and just suddenly you're a leader. Leadership for me means that, you know, it's a skillful act, or it's a skillful process. And you learn to be a leader over time. So just like any other skill that you shape and you mold and you work on over time, leadership is a skill as well. You need to actually work on that leadership over time. So I have learned a few skills in my 18-year journey as a leader in corporate South Africa, and especially as a woman leader. And, you know, I've learned some strategies along my journey. And I hope that what I'm about to share with you, you know, will really inspire you and you can apply it in your own life. So on to chapter 2, I talk about, you know, finding your identity as a leader. And this is very important to me. And to me, this means that, you know, not conforming. You are a woman if you're a woman. And often what is expected of us, especially in the corporate world, is that we dumb ourselves down. If you're a woman, you're often told that you're emotional or you're too emotional. And you are too soft. Guys, leadership requires many different you know, qualities and attributes and traits. And don't dumb down your soft skills and that emotional part of you if you're a leader, because you need to draw from all the different parts that make up who you are at different times as a leader to really now stand up and stand out as a leader. So it really means, you know, wanting to be a woman in a man's world, firstly, you know, allow and embrace the fact that you're a woman and you don't need to be hardcore. If you've got more soft skills, like I said, and you're more emotional in your approach, let it be. Embrace who you are and allow yourself to be a woman. It also means allowing yourself to really differ and stand out. We're all unique in our very own ways. God created us as unique human beings. So really embrace who you are and allow yourself to just differ and just stand out as a human being. It's about taking those traits that you might have felt are more negative traits and finding meaning, you know, in those negative traits. Sometimes there's a trait about yourself that people often, you know, point out and you feel that, because so many people are pointing it out, it's such a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's sometimes, you know, being a leader is about taking those traits that you yourself have defined as a weakness and really finding meaning in those traits. So let's talk about, you know, finding your leadership identity. I've got a great example. I have been labeled as too calm and too quiet at times. And I'm happy with that. When I was younger, guys, this used to bother me. But I don't have the loud personality. This used to bother me when I was younger. So something like being too calm and too quiet, I could have taken as a negative trait, for example. But I decided to, you know, embrace it as a trait that is mine, and then find meaning in how I can use this trait in my leadership journey, in my leadership style, in order to guide maybe a team of people that I am looking after at the time. So, like I said before, just by knowing myself, I turn something negative into something positive. And it's a quality that has given me the label of being unflappable. I've been told I'm too quiet and too calm, but later on in my life, as I've traveled on this journey as a leader in various aspects and various, junior roles, I'm now labeled as unflappable. It's something that I wear with a badge of honor because, I used to look after one of the biggest QSRs or quick service restaurants or fast food restaurants in South Africa as a head of PR and social media. And it's a quality and a trait that I needed to have, being unflappable, meaning showing, or showing calmness in crisis. And it's something that I wear as a badge of honor, like I said. So, when you find the traits that are frowned upon, it's very important that you recognize exactly what is frowned upon, and really, I think assess whether it's a negative trait or it's something that you can build on. If it's something that you can really turn around and turn it into a positive trait that can help you on your leadership journey. Not all, I'd say, feedback is bad feedback. As my boss lady often says, feedback is a gift. So leadership is the art where you need to get closer to yourself, know yourself a little bit more, know who you are, know what you stand for, what you like. If you don't know what you like, at least get to know what you don't like. And it may require you to seek feedback from others at times, whether that feedback is coming from your team. I think that's why as leaders or in corporate South Africa, there's this sort of 360 assessment feedback that requires you to send, those Word documents to your team or to your colleagues, just to give you feedback about who you are. So this is really how you get to know who you are and understand who you are. And sometimes it means, just going to a life coach, a leadership life coach, who will really be that third party who's not close to you. They're not your colleagues. They don't work with you every day. They're not your husband. They're not your mom. They're not your sister that you often go to seek advice. But it's a third party who's a qualified professional that you can go to and have conversations that are frank about your leadership style, and about just who you are. They will bring up those qualities that you often frown upon yourself and others frown upon. So last thing I want to mention here is that leadership identity is so important because at the core of it, it's your DNA. It's who you are. So at times you could even, this is an example that I'm going to pull from. When I had my life coaching session, which was actually yesterday, my leadership life coach gave me a very beautiful exercise to do before our 2-hour session. And he said, Qhawe, please think about these 3 things. If you had to write a story about your life, what would be the title of your story? The second one was, Qhawe, who would be the leading actress who would play Qhawekazi in your movie? And then think about the soundtrack to your movie. What 5 songs would you choose to be part of this movie? And at times, when someone gives you an exercise like that, you don't know where they're going with this, but it's a way for them to unpack, what you like, what you don't like, what narrative and story and legacy you want to leave as a leader. And I enjoyed that story so much. And through what he was able to extract from what I shared with him, we're able to actually write my movie, write the title, write my story, and say, okay, now that you're a CMO, you're here now. What's the next chapter? What are the next chapters of your story look like? Just from writing the story of my movie, title, the soundtrack, and who would play my lead role. And at times it's very difficult actually to seek deep within yourself and say, okay, I'm good at this versus I'm not good at that. But if you can say, actually, I'm Qhawekazi and I love Regina King. Why? Because, I grew up watching Regina King from all the way back from when she was a teenager on 227 until now. She now is a director. She's won so many awards. And then my life coach was like, okay, why do you like that about her? And what are then she was able to extract the qualities that I admire in a leader, and were able to write my story. So life coaching in this journey, I think for me is key, and you should consider a coach. And guys, a coach doesn't need to cost you money. A life coach can really be your sister who's walked the path before you. It can be somebody else that you admire, who's also walked the path before you. So just find those people that are relevant to your story. I love this quote by Marilyn Monroe, which says, "I don't mind living in a man's world as long as I can be a woman." I love this quote because it basically says, do not conform, do not conform, do not conform. It says, be who you are, and you are fine just the way you are. So even if the world tells you what leadership should be, at the core of it, you need to trust yourself. You need to embrace who you are, and you need to take and extract what makes you unique and really stand out, and really then hone in on those skills and just elevate those skills and make sure that those are the skills that you take with you on your leadership journey. So tap into your strongest strengths to bring out your style. Whether your style can be compassionate, you've got humility. We know Mother Teresa had so much humility, but she was very calm. She didn't speak much. She was a woman of action. Madiba was somebody with empathy, when he took over as a leader, as the first democratic elected president. He had so much compassion and empathy for the previous government. And that was his style of leadership. So find your key strengths and make sure that those are the ones that you hone in on and you work on and you strengthen them in order to help you in your leadership journey. And all I'm trying to say is that leaders differ, so stand out in your own terms. Don't try and be somebody else. Do not conform. And I have had this leadership identity of mine, which is calm, cool, collected, unflappable. Tested a number of times in my career. Most of you remember the hashtag KFC proposal, hashtag KFC wedding. It's a big campaign that went viral back in November 2019 from the biggest fast food restaurant, which is KFC or brand. At the time, I was 4 days from maternity leave, coming back to the office when that story broke. And it's a story that, or an example that I want to share with you guys today. And most of you don't know, the background story in making, I think, the KFC, hashtag KFC proposal trend for about 2 weeks. And really making it, one of those stories that was loved by South Africans, but also the world. I mean, we trended globally, which was a first for KFC South Africa. But it's a story that I'm very proud of. And it did not come without its challenges, okay? I'm calling this leading through Black Twitter backlash. We know Black Twitter and how sometimes if you're part of, the conversations that happen on Black Twitter, you can end up being on the receiving end of the backlash. And this happened to us back in November. The story landed in my team, the PR and social media team at KFC. We're the brand custodians of the biggest fast food restaurant. And if you are the brand custodian, what do you do? And especially because I'm the PR and social media, manager. You by all means, you protect your brand. There's brand reputation that is part of your role and your scope of work. There's crisis communications as part of that, but also you are also a culture champion. You need to find relevant moments and unique moments in culture to make your brand relevant. And that's really what happened with the KFC proposal. And we led with the story as the brand team. And we asked South Africans, to help us find the KFC couple after we had received this video on Instagram. And we decided to take the conversation from Instagram onto Twitter, where we said to the ordinary South Africans, hey, South Africans, we've just seen this cute video. There's a couple that just proposed at a KFC restaurant in the Vaal. We don't know who they are, but please help us find them. Black Twitter investigators of note, help us find this couple. And let's see what we can do for them as KFC. And at the time, all we were thinking about is maybe having a photo shoot of at a flagship store. One of our flagship stores is in Sandton on Rivonia, or just maybe gifting them with something small. But the conversation on Twitter grew to such a phenomenal level that South Africans felt and that they were actually part of the story. So my role as the head of PR and social media was to really then find ways to include our ordinary South Africans in the story of the KFC proposal. And that meant that there are certain people who didn't like some of the decisions that we took as a brand team, as the custodians of KFC, because at the end of the day, the story came from the brand team. And what needed to happen is that I needed to then really just lead the team to look out for what is best for brand KFC as the custodians, number one, but also try and find a middle ground with, South Africans were not really excited and happy about some of our decisions that we had taken. And like I said, being unflappable gave me a sense of calm. I just put my head down, drowned out the noise, and made sure that at the end of the day, I focused on key things. You're a brand custodian. How do you protect the reputation of KFC? But then how do you also find the balance in making ordinary South Africans feel as if they are still part of this journey, even if you are making the decisions from brand team KFC? And honestly, being unflappable is one of those traits that helped me during that time. The third chapter is about communicating and negotiating. This may sound like it's common knowledge, but to be honest, guys, you can imagine as we lead, we need to talk, ne? But effective communication is not just about talking. It's about listening. They often say listening is a skill. So communicating in this sense to me means that you inspire others to take action. You make sure that the people that you are leading are on the same journey with you. So you take them on this journey with you by constantly and continuously communicating your plans, your vision with them, and checking in with them when that vision or your goals and the plans change. So you need to communicate clearly. And effective communication, remember, requires listening. So what do you need to do to listen? You need to ask people for their opinion. Ask people and invite people to give you input and feedback. You need to then sit back and take this feedback and listen to this feedback and make sure that you give them a voice. And guess what happens when you give people a voice? People have a sense of ownership. And when you have a sense of ownership, especially towards a common goal and a vision, you then tend to be more productive. You really want to give it your all. And you really want to show your manager that, you know what, I believe in this vision and this is how I can contribute towards that vision. The second thing is negotiating. People assume that this is about getting your way. It is not. It's about making sure that people you work with and the people that you are leading are winning, in the goals and the vision that you've set up for them. It's not about being domineering as a leader. It's about learning to compromise, finding a middle ground when your team has a different opinion to yours. And this happens in everyday life. You need to be able to take feedback. Feedback as a leader is your biggest gift because it means that your team is not afraid to stand up to you, to say that I've got a different opinion or a different way of doing this. And it can only do what? Build you as a leader and build your team. So negotiating and the art of negotiating and finding that middle ground is very important. And leadership, guys, is not a one-man show. And negotiating is all about that. And then, communicating means being able to convey your message across using various tools, and having various tools is very important. Understanding which tool works best for you as a leader is the best thing you can find for yourself. Because if you find that one tool that works for you, then you'll make sure that that's the one that you really sharpen, and you make sure that is the one that is the strongest. And your work will improve. So some people are strong at verbal communication, and others are weak in verbal communication. Leadership is tough, and so I'd say be prepared by having all the right communication tools. You don't have to perfect all of them at all. No one expects you to. But I think what leadership is all about is just finding that one communication tool that you can use in your everyday life. And guys, there are days that you'll find that your communicating has taken everything out of you. You feel tired, you feel drained. And there are times or moments that you require, it will require you to negotiate. And also you'll feel that, you've been negotiating and talking and just communicating for too long. It's not a cutthroat, or it's not as cutthroat as it is. It's a delicate balance of finding the middle ground of how to communicate, what's your core strengths, and then how to negotiate. Things that are really important. And then the last chapter is about building social capital that will carry you through as a leader. Some people call it social currency. And like I said in the beginning, it's one of my favorites because it's the most underestimated, for me, leadership qualities, having social currency or social capital. But it's one that I have tapped into throughout my career. And what this essentially means is that, you need to always be in the know as a leader. And as a marketer, it depends on what brand I'm working on. But I'll give you an example. When I was working on Castle Light, which is a lifestyle brand, it was very important to me to be able to be in the know, to know what's happening on the ground. What's the latest? Castle Light as a beer is a lifestyle brand. So I needed to know what's the latest, especially for the target audience that Castle Light was trying to reach. I needed to know what makes them tick. What's happening on the ground in terms of pop culture? So in terms of music, in terms of, experiential events, what are people into? So that I can be able to bake or weave the brand into popular culture naturally, organically, in some of my campaigns that I worked on. The second one is that you are, building social capital or currency. You need to entrench yourself in networks and networks that are relevant. People underestimate the importance of building and cultivating, relationships throughout your career. I am one who believes in this one very strongly, especially when I find somebody that is like-minded to me, even if they're a bit older or a little bit younger. I cultivate those relationships because you never know where those strong networks are going to take you. And in my career, they've taken me quite far. I remember when after launching Flying Fish back in 2013, working at SAP as a marketing manager, honestly, after 18 months and being at SAP for 7 years, I was finished, as tired, drained mentally and physically. I decided to take a sabbatical. And while I was on sabbatical, a PR agency that I'd met while I was working on Castle Light, which is the brand before I was promoted to launch Flying Fish, contacted me. He's a PR agency based in the UK. He was the guy that negotiated a big contract for Castle Light, a campaign that I am proud of and that I was working on at the time, which is, Feel the Beat of Sub-Zero, which has become Castle Light Music Unlocks. And he negotiated the deal between Kanye West and Castle Light. Then he called me and said, Q, I heard that you're on sabbatical. I'm looking for somebody to look after my business affairs in Africa. And guess what? He asked me to lead, to be that person who represented his business affairs in South Africa and in Africa. And that's just through building strong relationships. And my 6 months later into my journey as, on sabbatical, I ended up working for myself and establishing my own company, which I did for about a year. And yeah, that's why this topic really excites me, because I've got practical examples in terms of how building social currency and social capital has really elevated and strengthened my leadership in corporate South Africa. And social capital is about building and maintaining relationships in your network. And a network can be anything, a team, a colleague. It can be usisi or Ohlele Kitchini who's serving tea to everybody. Treat everybody with respect and just give them a time of day and listen to them. And these networks and relationships, you don't know where they're going to take you as a leader. And for me, just to summarize, in essence, what I'm trying to say is that to be successful, or to be a successful leader, especially in corporate South Africa as a woman, you must learn 2 basic lessons, and these are life lessons. People are complex, number 1, we know that. And then people are different. And human beings respond not only to the traditional carrot or stick that you're dangling in front of them. People are ambitious. People have got aspirations, they've got dreams. As a leader, it's your responsibility to sit people down, especially when they report to you. Get to know them on a personal level, understand those dreams and aspirations, and see how you can actually build them into your own vision and into their own vision. And how you can actually ask them to just hone in on those dreams and aspirations and how they can make them become a reality within the vision that you have crafted and created for your team. So ultimately, leadership is about people, and it's very complex. And understanding those people will really make sure that it differentiates you as a leader. It sets you apart. And my leadership style is to empower my people. I empower people to show up at their best, and then I trust them. Trust people. Empower, then trust, step back. Don't micromanage. And trust people to do what they're hired to do. Second thing for me is that my love language is words of affirmation. And therefore, this is how I express love, and this is how I receive love. So naturally, within my leadership style, I like to acknowledge people. I give credit where credit is due. And sometimes, guys, it's about understanding your team, your team's not even leadership style, but their love language, so that you know how to actually appreciate and acknowledge them in their love language. It's the same thing in a relationship, in a marriage, or boyfriend and girlfriend. It's the same thing. Those love languages for me was a powerful book that I read. It really freed me. The third thing is that as a leader, you need to be vulnerable, and seek advice and input from your team. You don't know everything as a leader. So it's very important that you go back to your team, get their input, give everyone a voice, so that everyone feels as if they're part of crafting the bigger and overarching vision that you have. The fourth thing for me is that you need to lead with heart. And what this means is that you need to genuinely care for people. And leading with heart means that you genuinely care for people, you genuinely care for their well-being. And at times, you need to show up with empathy at work, especially if you look at the current, I would say, environment in which we operate. We're in COVID-19. People are going through the most, including yourself. So showing up with empathy as a leader is very important. And then the last thing for me is that lead by example, lead from the front. You need to be able to demonstrate the behavior that you expect from other people in yourself. So lead by example and make sure that how you show up is exactly how you expect other people to show up, especially when you're in a leadership position. I hope all of these tips have helped you somehow. This is just my 18-month journey as a 43-year-old mom of 2. And I really hope that I've imparted some wisdom in my 43 years of experience, but 18 years of experience, I think, in corporate South Africa as a leader. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.
For more informative videos, visit www.empoweryouth.co.za.